What's up, everybody? Welcome back to TCP for episode 62. We have a fan favorite with us on today's episode, Rocky B Trades, one of our favorites as well. The last time we had him on was during the summer of 2022, if you believe that. It's been a long time, so we have a lot of catching up to do. Excited to have him back on the podcast.
Yeah, man, Rocky was one of my favorite interviews of 2022, so definitely excited to get him back in the building. Much to talk about. Markets are, I think the market actually might be like kind of in the same place, to be honest. I have to go back and look at the chart.
SPY 400 level
I
magnet.
can guarantee you we were at SPY 400 last time we interviewed Rocky. I can guarantee it.
That's hilarious. All right, without further ado, Rocky B Trades, welcome back to the show. How you doing?
Hey, Alejandro. Thanks for having me on, Noah. Good to be back on here. I know it was like June since last time we talked, and I think SPY is at the same level last time we talked, but it's been a crazy market. It's been fun, a lot of ups and downs, but happy to be back on here.
Yeah, man. So, I've got a bunch of questions for you just regarding how you've been trading, how you've been navigating since the last time we spoke. If you're like Noah and I, things are changing constantly, and we're always adapting, not necessarily strategy hopping, but one thing may work one month in this market and it may not work the next month. And I remember when we had you on, your primary thing was news trading. And that's obviously dependent on whether or not there's news, right? So that's my first question. I want to ask you, how's the news trading been going? Are you still doing that? Is that still your main thing or what?
Yeah, well, definitely it's been a lot slower these past, I would say 3 months. Definitely, it's been a lot slower. The news sources that I rely on aren't really posting things. And obviously when the market's selling hard like this, nobody's going to want to release news at all. And if any news comes out, it's usually bad news. So I've been trying to pivot towards other styles of trading. I've been swinging a little bit more. Trying to focus and lock in on my technicals a little more. I've even dabbled in the futures a bit. So I'm kind of just trying to do a little bit of everything. Obviously because my top style, when it's not there, you got to be able to adjust and do something else if you want to continue to make money and succeed and do well with this thing. So it's definitely been a little up and down recently, though. Actually, these past 2 or 3 weeks, it's been a little better. I use a scanner, which helps me like get into these plays even before the news drops. Points me out on some tickers, and I don't know if you saw last week, but Lucid was up like 100% a day. There's been some crazy plays, and I think they're starting to slowly creep back in, but it definitely has been slow for the past like 2 or 3 months. So
what was that one from last week? Like, was it Lucid? It was to the downside. Like they had some sort of news or something.
No,
Somebody had news last week.
BBBY.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that
BBBY.
was sick. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's to the downside. And it was breaking like a $3 psych level. And I looked at the level 2, there was a 50,000 share buyer, and he pulled his bid. Then the news dropped, the volume started pouring in and started selling. I was able to catch it, and then it halted down a few times. But those plays happen maybe like once every 2 weeks. Like they're not going to happen too often, but when you get them, you got to take advantage. So
My question regarding that, because I know the last time you were on the podcast and you were talking about your strategy and how you actually trade this stuff, like you're ready to go. And you would, you're following these accounts, Fast Stock Market News, and Oracle on Twitter and whatnot. And you're really ready to pull the trigger when the opportunity comes. But when things slow down, have you found that maybe you're late to something when it does happen? Or are you not as focused now because, you're not just going to sit there all day and then, no tradable news comes out and then you're just wasting your time? Have you made adjustments in that sense?
yeah, I would say I've adjusted to playing more large caps a lot more. I've also been swinging a little bit as well, just because I'm not going to the market every day expecting news. Some of the best months I've ever had in my trade career, news was on fire. There was plenty of news headlines August of this past year. But now since it's been slow, you got to kind of play defense or just find another strategy, try to fine tune that, get better at that, make some money on that. Because the market, you got to be able to adapt to changing market conditions. Sometimes news is slow. So for me, I got to find a way to do something better. So I've been trying to play large caps a little more. I'm not as good at them, obviously, as news, but I'll be trading those. I've been swinging a little bit. I've even tried some crypto. So I'm trying to just dabble into a little bit of everything. Just try to be kind of like a Swiss Army knife, I guess. Be able to do a little bit of everything.
Crypto trading is really jumped up lately, right? Like with the Bing X and like the access to it, and
Yeah.
like the some of these like leveraged trading crypto firms. I found that I haven't been able to really bite the bullet and get in there, but I mean it seems like it's the same thing, right? It's the same concept. I mean, as long as you're trading price and time, I mean nothing is really changing. So I mean that's something that I think it's a leap. It seems like a leap, like at least in my head. For me, I think it's more of like a mental block as opposed to like I don't want to trade crypto because I don't know what I'm doing. It's like the markets kind of move the same. Like there's some nuances that obviously you'll pick up like as you do it. But I think that's one of those things that you know there are definitely like transferable skills. I feel like people would find that it's not as crazy of a leap as it kind of seems sometimes. Would you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I started crypto. It's not, well, first off, I mean, my port on that is like way smaller than any of my normal port just because, we've seen these crypto firms, they'll go bankrupt or whatever. So, but yeah, to answer your question, I would say the leap between crypto and just trading any stock, it's really not that far off. Actually, I mean, crypto follows supply and demand pretty well. And everybody gets caught up in these crazy screenshots, but truthfully, you're not, entering something at 100x leverage with more than $200 or $300 max, because you can get liquidated on that quickly. So if you're going to hop into crypto, you got to know how it moves. I highly recommend only putting money you're okay with losing. But the guy I trade with, John B, he loves trading crypto and futures off it too, because with FOMC and CPI, he goes really heavy on both sides with these strangles, are like 200x on each side. He'll get stopped out of one for 50% loss, but then when the other side goes nuclear and you get 2, 3, 400%, it's still a net green trade. So I just have that Bing X account at my disposal. I'll trade it like sometimes. It's not my first focus every day, but if it's something's there, like if Elon tweeted Doge, like it's gonna rip, or some random small crypto coin is going bankrupt, like it's going to sell, and obviously I'm a news trader, I can react to that. So yeah, I traded a little bit. It's not my first source of trading, I'd say.
It's also open on the weekends, which is pretty
That's
tight.
true.
Like you could trade it on every Saturday. I go on FinTwit, I see John B in there ripping like
Yeah,
Bitcoin or something, absolute savage. But yeah, that's I feel like that's something that I definitely want to try out this year in particular, just to, like you said, like getting into different markets, and even talking with some of the guys in the Discord, like a lot of the people, or some of the people, I shouldn't say a lot, in our Discord trade forex, and it's like there's times where the forex markets are moving nicely, and there's really a lot of opportunity there, and maybe the indices aren't moving as great. I mean, I'm looking at the daily chart right now, back in late December when we were range bound for like 3 weeks, right? Like there's going to be times where you can get better opportunity in different markets. So like I think that's the advantage. Like not so much like you said for the screenshot of the Bing X, but more so like just to have a diversified skill set where if my market my bread and butter market that I love to trade isn't really moving, isn't really presenting those opportunities that I want to see, I still have something where I can go and engage price and make money.
exactly. And I would say, I mean, Alejandro, I remember I didn't know really anybody trading futures until I saw Alejandro tweeting about it in the system and things in early summer whenever we last talked. And that kind of like inspired me. Like, you got to be able to learn something new because, yeah, I've traded options like 80% of my trading career, but there are times when it's slow, it's boring, it's choppy. Like, you got to be able to do something else. So if that's learning a new skill, a new strategy, trying a new type of trading, whether it's to futures or to shares or, swinging, whatever that is, this could be the time to really do that just because every market, kind of fluctuates, I feel like, with like how smoothly things move, I guess.
It's important to kind of, try different things out, and you never know what you're going to end up being really good at, like what works for your brain. The only thing I'll say is, if you've been trading options for the longest time and you start trading futures and you start having success, I mean, the only thing you really have to worry about is keeping your risk management similar, or the exact same from, like if I'm trading, this is when I feel a lot of people can get in trouble. So for me, like if I'm trading futures and I know what my risk management is like, I know how much I have to make per trade based on my hit rate in order to be profitable. And then I go over and I start trading options and I use a completely different system and I'm swinging for home runs, and I'm like shooting for like these small caps that are blowing up, especially early this year, right? We've been seeing that everywhere. I mean, Kathy Wood is up like a bajillion percent. Like all of ARK, all these shitcoins are ripping. And so you see a lot of people trading this stuff. And so if you're trading futures and your risk management is super tight, and then you go over and you're trading options and you're going for these home runs and you're giving back all this money, just like that doesn't really make sense, right? So, but if you can go over and trade options, and maybe you're still equally as conservative, and that's what I try to do. I'll trade mega caps every once in a while. If I see a swing that I really like, it's like when I'm trading options, the number one thing in the back of my mind, because when I first started trading them, like there were so many times where I just got burned. I'm like, all right, think about what is the absolute worst thing that can go wrong. Like you have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared to manage your risk. And I want to know before I enter that trade exactly how much I can possibly lose. So I think as long as you're managing risk across these different markets, no matter what it is that you're trading, you could find that you have success, and you can find something that you're good at. But a lot of it is the mentality. It's like people think futures is, oh, you can't blow up trading futures, and they're more conservative and they're smarter and they're more precise with their entries and they're super technical, and then they go trade options and they're going for 10 baggers. It's like, well, that's probably not gonna, like, your options account is gonna get smoked. Your futures account is gonna be flat or doing well, or maybe you're red in your futures account, but at least you're managing your stuff, right? So
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. When you're trading leverage products, I mean, options, you're trading with leverage. Futures, you're trading with leverage. Crypto, you're trading with leverage. And with that leverage, you have to be able to manage that risk appropriately, and keep it tight or whatever that is, and just know what your defined risk and loss is going into the trade, so your emotions aren't taking over. I remember when I first started trading futures, I was playing with these minis, and 3 or 4 I was like, okay, I'm making $100 here, $200 here, and then I tried like 1 or 2 of the big ES cons, and like the volatility was crazy. Like I'll be up 250, I'll be up 750, I'll be down 500. I was like, oh man,
yeah.
like that was a lesson for me. So I would say for anybody who is strict, I assume most people listening to this probably trade options. I would say if you're going to get into something new, you got to educate yourself on how things move. Ask other good traders, and don't be afraid to try something new, because who knows, that could be what you love to do.
I mean, last point on the options thing, I think when you're trading options in particular, just because of the mechanics of the options, and we've talked about this so many times, where it's like, it's not just the direction, it's also the timing of it, where I'm in these 390 calls, SPY's trading at 388. I want SPY to go up towards 390, but I also needed to do that like kind of soon, like now. Like if it doesn't do it now, I could lose on data decay. I could get there eventually, and I might still lose. So I think that's, for me at least, because I started trading futures as well, like earlier, late last year, and more heavily early this year, where it's like the market that we've seen, particularly so far this year, we've had a lot of days, like even today, where it's like that slow grind higher, and you being right on direction is already so hard, right? It's already so difficult to do. And then I just hate to see people be right on direction and wind up losing money because you're in a 0 day out of the money call option, and you bet right on the direction, but you lost money because they'd killed you one pullback and you're wiped out. So I think particularly like when it comes to that, that's why I really enjoy futures trading. And like Alejandro said, it's definitely easier to manage risk. I found that going into a futures trade, I know before I press buy what I'm going to lose if I'm wrong and what I'm going to make if I'm right. And I found that with options, I had an idea, obviously, like the longer you trade them, like the better of an idea you're going to have. But but I never had like that set, like, okay, here's how much I will lose like every single time. Like, you know what I mean? So like that type of thing, or like, here's how much I'm going to make. And I think that can, the upside can even be worse because you don't know exactly how much you're going to make. And so that lets you on the upside start to think bigger than you originally were, right? It's like, well, I didn't really expect to be up 100%. This thing looks like it could keep going. Maybe I'll get 200%. Maybe I won't take profit here. Maybe I'll just let it go. And like that winds up coming back down and you give back some of your profits, right? So I think, a lot of options traders, especially if like that's how you learned how to trade, is with options, I definitely would recommend at least dabbling in futures. You don't even have to trade like actual futures, like paper trade them, like just see how they work and see if it's better for you. Because I feel like for a lot of people, it probably would be.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the thing with options. We don't know like how much we're going to lose. Like when you think you know the Greeks and you can calculate them, but when the stock is moving in real time, either for or against you, and then you have theta and your deltas and everything else working against you, IV. I mean, it's the list goes on. But I think what's nicer about futures is like you can hold for the longer move if you have a set predefined risk that you're willing to risk on the chart. And if you get that direction right, you hold that trade like Alejandro usually does with the system, you can get those big moves. And when you do, you're paid. So I think, that's pretty cool about futures.
Yeah, just today. So I was in a long, I was up 10 points. It comes back to my entry. The chart is still 110% still intact. The idea is still there. Had I been long, 0DTE, SPY options, or any options in general, I would have been red on the position because of that theta decay eating away at my premium, because the move took a little while. It took like an hour for the market to climb 10 points. It's the day before FOMC. Things were slower. But as it came back down to my entry, I'm in my futures long and I'm looking at the chart and I'm like, well, I have no reason to exit this trade here. Like, I still like it. I'm just going to hang on to this. Next thing you know, we close the day at new highs. And the trade ran like 25 points, and it's just perfect. And I put myself in that position where I know exactly what I want to see out of this chart. And if it doesn't do that, that's fine. I'll exit at a loss. If it does work in my favor, I know where I want to take profit. I know my price targets. Options, it's way, way more complicated because you need it to go in your direction. And as Noah said, you need it to happen like now. And then not to even, because we've been talking about options versus futures for a little while now, but we don't even talk about the overnight risk you carry when you're swinging options. What happens when that shit, opens down 50%? How are you managing your risk there? Like, did you plan for that? Like, those are that stuff is out of your control. Whereas futures, overnight, you can have that stop loss in. It's like trading during the cash session. It's like trading intraday. It's the same kind of thing. So
that's a good point.
I think for new traders, I think a lot more people are starting to trade futures now, which is good. We got a bunch of people in the Discord trading futures. I don't want to say I started that, but
dude, you were a pioneer, man. I would say you definitely helped.
This fucking guy.
So.
Every trader knows, and I speak from personal experience, when you are first learning to trade, it is extremely easy to blow up an account.
A big part of the reason why new traders struggle is the stress of risking their hard-earned capital while they're still learning.
Agreed. And I personally think that trading through a prop trading firm is the perfect way for traders to learn without risking their money.
That's why Trading Camp is partnered with Elite Trader Funding, a prop firm with a mission to educate and provide capital to traders.
From trading with established risk management protocols to not having to fight theta decay trading options, there are so many advantages to trading with ETF.
Unlike other prop firms, ETF has transparent fee and payout structures. Combine that with excellent customer service and an educational Discord that fosters proper trading habits, and it's a no-brainer.
TCP is excited to offer our listeners 40% off of any trading evaluation on ETF's site except for Fast Track. Use code TCP710 and follow the link in the show notes, or simply head over to elitetraderfunding.com to start your journey as a funded trader. All right, let's move on here. So, Rocky, you said you've been trading mega caps. What sort of strategies are you implementing? What does your prep look like pre-market, after hours? What's the whole deal with how you're trading these mega caps?
Yeah, so the first thing is usually when the market closes at 4, I try to really I got to get away from the screens, because when you're staring at screens all day for 7-8 hours intraday, you're doing another hour or so at night, another hour in the morning. that's going to take away a lot of your mental capital. But when it comes to preparation, usually like an hour before bed, I'll just go through stocks. I'll look through their daily time frame, see if there's any setups worth playing, see if there's any inside bar setups, maybe days of consolidation for a bigger break one way or another. If I'm swinging something, I want to go through multiple time frames, higher time frames, the daily and the weekly. And that's something I've been doing more, swinging a little bit. I've been buying 3 to 6 weeks of time. I'm trying to get myself in these lower risk setups, but if there's like a catalyst or something, or if the chart looks good, I'll swing it. And on top of that, one more thing I've been using is flow a little bit. I'll use flow for swings, like if there's like 3 million in calls or something, and one day the market sells off really hard, but the open interest is still really high on those calls. People are still in it. And then I'll see like they're down 30 to 40%. Well, if we pull back to key support level on the chart, maybe I'll enter some of those calls as well. So I've been trying to do that a little bit. In terms of playing large caps though, like intraday, John in our Discord, I think he's the best SPY trader. I'm not just saying that because he's my friend, but he can trade all the large caps. He has SPY, QQQ, Nvidia, Tesla charted out every single day. And one thing that he taught me is that when he's trading SPY and QQQ, he's always paying attention to what like the big tech stocks are doing. What's XLE doing? What's oil doing? What are banks doing? XLF. And that's something I never did, because when I traded SPY and all this, I would just, what's tech doing? But that's one thing that I have learned from him is look at what banks and oil are doing too, because they're in healthcare, because they're going to help move the overall market as well. So I would say supply and demand is still the top strategy for those large caps. And, I'll chart out basic levels as well, like pre-market high, pre-market low, previous day high and low, and things like that. Occasionally I'll draw fibs, but that's basically really how I trade. Like I'll try to take something from a zone, and then intraday, now I'll have my scanner up, and if I see some volume plays pop up, I'll call them out to the Discord, get in and get out. So that's really what I've been doing.
It's not rocket science.
No, not rocket science.
It's the basics, man. It just seems like you're just sticking to the basics.
Well, I think it's really like, even talking about your sort of prep, it's like, I think it's more the consistency, right, of doing that every single day. I feel like, and we talked about this yesterday in the Discord, like it doesn't really matter. Not that it doesn't matter, but like, I feel like people put too much emphasis on the strategy itself, right? Whether it's the system, whether it's, using supply and demand, whatever it is. But I think the real delta, like the real change, the real determinant of your success is going to be how consistent you are with it. And I think, like you said, you're doing that every single day, every single night before you go to bed and when you wake up in the morning. You're probably going to do better than somebody who has the best strategy in the world but is inconsistent with it, right? So like that, it sounds like to me is like what you try and focus on is that consistency of just doing it every single day. Talk about how you are able to remain consistent, because it seems really simple, right? Let me just wake up and chart my supply and demand and my previous day's high and low, and I'm all set, right? But we all know it's not that easy. So talk about how you remain consistent day in and day out.
Yeah, well, consistency all really comes down to discipline. And the guy I trade with every day, John, is a very disciplined individual. I mean, you guys heard his story. But, the Discord, we started this thing called like the 75 hard, where we're all really serious about taking care of our health and doing things outside the market to give us that discipline. And, when the market's open, we're going to use the discipline that we've built to trade and, react when the market requires reaction, or just relax and, observe the market, I would say. And just being consistent. I mean, you just got to show up and you got to want it, because, when the market was hot with news, I barely had to prep, probably, really, because I know any news trade, I'm going to be the first one there. Now, it's really competitive. I have a lot of great friends. They're probably better news traders than I am. They're quicker than me, but I got to get better at, maybe my technicals can get better. Maybe I can trade futures a little bit. I could swing, do things like that. So I would say you just got to be willing to show up and, just stick to your goals. I mean, if this is what you really want to do, the market's, it's taking people out where they don't put in the time, and it's showing, and it's sad to see. But the ones that are sticking around here, they're going the extra mile. They're putting in the work to remain consistent, and remain, doing this. because it's not an easy thing to do. Like trading is really not as easy as it seems.
It's definitely like survival of the fittest right now. I mean, it's been tough, man. I started the podcast by talking about, all right, tell us about what has changed in your trading, because I knew you would have an answer, and it's like month to month or quarter to quarter, you have to be changing something. You have to be adapting with the market to, and it doesn't necessarily mean like, as I said earlier, again, like switching up your strategy. It's just, you know, if you're doing something over and over and it's not working, you need to either learn like what is going wrong, or maybe go to something else if you really don't have faith in it. And that's what I tell a lot of people when you're trading and your system or your strategy isn't giving you that success that you'd like to see. What a lot of people do is they go and they hop and they try to find something else, and they try to find like the next holy grail. And I tell people, you have to learn to love your losers. You have to learn that, okay, if I actually have belief in my system and what I'm doing here, every single time I lose a trade, that's going to help me to improve what I'm doing versus I need to run from this because it's not working. People don't realize if you can win 40 to 50% of the time and you have strong risk management, you can be a really good trader. You can be a really good trader, but this idea in people's heads that the perfect system is going to be a system where I'm winning 90% of the time and I have to do it and I have to find that and it's out there somewhere. That's bullshit, man. You should be looking at your system, trying to figure out how can I improve this thing. Anytime that it's not doing as great as you'd like it to, that's the market providing you with new information. Like I've had months where I've been trading the system. I remember last October earnings season, I learned a lot because I got sucked into the volatility. I was trading the same way I was in September. And in September, I had a great month because there was a lot of trend in the market. And then October comes around and we're in the midst of earnings season. I just failed to recognize that I'm not better than the volatility and I wasn't prepared for it. But now here we are in another earnings season and I'm crushing it so far because I'm much more prepared and I'm quicker to take my profits and I know where I can and can't enter trades. And if it wasn't for the struggles I had in October, if I would have just ran from that and done something else, I would have never been able to improve my strategy. I wouldn't now be in January confident in making money, right? I had an awesome month and I attribute it to that, to sticking it out. So if you're listening and you're struggling and you're looking for that holy grail, and I know everybody in trading says that there's no holy grail, like stop strategy hopping, but it's a serious thing. Like try to learn from your losers, try to improve your system. And, it might be a little while where you're not making any money or you're even losing money, but then, after months and months and months, now you know when to enter trades, when to not enter trades. And that's, the most important thing that you can learn. And that's the market teaching you for free. Well, I guess not actually for free because you're probably going to lose some money, but that's the market teaching you in real time what you need to do to be successful. It's up to you to listen to that.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, when you lose, you got to learn something from it. Too many times people lose and they just give up on the strategy. They give up on the process. It's like, that's the time to learn. Anytime I've taken a big loss or anything, I'll usually just talk to my dad, who he was an options broker. I mean, any options related question, any trading question, I mean, he can answer for me. And, usually I talk to him about psychology. He's told me multiple times, if I've had these I've had bad losses before, sucks. But, you got to have the discipline and know, okay, maybe it's time for me to size. I got to humble myself. I got to take a step back and I got to realize that, I played great offense 80% of 2022 was a good year, but can I play some defense now? Can I preserve that capital? Because it's not about how much you make. You got to be able to keep that money too. So the market every day, I mean, it's going to challenge you so many ways, mentally, emotionally, but you got to be able to stick with those challenges. And when times get tough, that's when you get better.
That's what it's all about. It's about sticking it out. Something that I've been really focusing on this year is not becoming frustrated when I have like a few losing trades in a row, or I'm just like I have a flat week. So I actually started the month of January red. So imagine, you come into the new year, you're all pumped, and I did my weekend homework, my year reflection, and I got all these new ideas in my head, and then I come in and like the first 2 days of the year I'm red, and I'm like, well, that sucks. But I told myself that I was going to have the discipline to not let that impact me emotionally and not affect, the rest of the trades that I was going to take that week or in the weeks to come. And again, I finished January really strong with the green month, but it's like that window where you're super pissed off. It's in those times where, in order to be successful, you really got to dial it in. Like, you really have to dial it in. Like, you cannot have that slip up. There is absolutely no excuse for blowing up an account anymore. If you've blown up your account, stop. You're still the one pressing the buttons, right? It's like, even if you're learning, that can't happen anymore. And, for me, it's just about being in the zone all the time. And if I feel like I can't trade in the zone, I'm stepping away and I'm doing something else. And, it sucks. Sometimes that means like I'll take a trade on Monday, Tuesday, and I lose money and I don't trade again for the rest of the week. But, if I know I'm going to potentially do something stupid, I'm not going to put myself in that situation anymore. Like, that risk management is so important. It's a lot less about, how often can you be right? It's way more about, can you not be an idiot when you're wrong? Just sticking to it and, making the right decision as often as you can. Because we all know what the right decision is. Everybody, no matter how long you've been trading, not to full port your account. Not to let the trade go past your stop loss. Like, what to do, but can you do it?
Can you execute? Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people have these strategies and, but when it's game time, like, can you really make that, can you execute to perform? And if you can't, if you're not there mentally, it's okay to take a step back. The market's always going to be there. And one thing that I try to preach to everybody is I don't trade, and this has worked for me, but I don't trade during this thing called the dead period. That's what I call it. And literally from 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard to about 2, I'm really not actively looking for any trades unless there's like huge news or anything volume related or Powell speaking or something like that can really move the market. But that system and just taking that two hour ish window to go get some lunch, walk, read a book, just do something and refresh your mind, I think that can really help level up your trading as well. Because if you're just staring at every single tick the whole entire day, you're not moving, it can get exhausting. Then your performance gets sloppy and things like that, and that's not what you want.
I think part of it too could be like how you're looking at success. So like if you're looking at what you think a successful trader is, and you think that entails you making a certain amount of like money per day or per week or per month, and then you really like size up to try and hit that goal, as opposed to the view of success where it's just like being consistently green or just being consistent and consistently profitable. I think the image that people have of success sometimes when it comes to trading is monetary, right? It's I need to make $10,000 in a day or $10,000 this week or $10,000 this month, as opposed to the view being I just need to be consistent, have that smooth P&L curve that goes up and to the right. And if you're somebody who you believe success is making a ton of money, that's what you're going to try and do, right? You're going to go in and not necessarily try and be consistent every day, but you're going to go into the market trying to make a lot of money. And as a lot of us know, when you are looking for it, like that's where you can take your biggest losses, right? Where you're like, this setup is so perfect, I'm going to go 3x the normal size so that I can get that big trade and I can post it on Twitter and everyone's going to juice me and I'm going to look so sick. And then immediately, like that's the one that hurts you the most, right? And it's like, it could be like a normal trade. Like that's happened to me so many times in the past where it's like this trade that I lost on was normal, but because I had sized up relative to how I'm usually sizing, that what is normally a 20% loss, let's say 20% is like my average loss on options. If you take a 20% loss on 3x your size, it's almost like you took a 60% loss, right? And it's like, those are the ones that are really difficult to come back from, I find, is when you're just really trying to make that big chunk all at once. Like, this is my time to, really step on the gas. I feel like that can really become such an issue for a lot of people.
that's the thing. When you were talking about how if you come into the market and like your only goal is just to make a ton of money, like that's how I'm going to be successful. If you have that mindset, it's probably not going to end well, because that's when the greed, your emotions take over. You don't really think logically. You just think like, all right, I'll put 10 grand in this position. Hey, if I get 10%, that's a grand. If I can do that, right? And
That's the
then
worst thinking ever.
it's a terrible mentality. And then you go in and you're like, oh shoot, I'm already down like 1,500, and then it's like, oh, basically, you got to just stick to your rules, guys. You got to stay disciplined, and you got to always look at the bigger picture. I think to myself last year, and this time last year I struggled, and I made like 3 grand for the month. But typically my goal is, I honestly, I love to do 5 digits a month, but I've tried to scale it back down. If I can just do 5 a month, I'm fine. 6 a month, whatever. And then February was also slow, and last year, and I'm like, man, this sucks. Like, I had a really good 2021. Fast forward, April was on fire with news, and I took advantage of it. And I had my second biggest month of all time, and it net me a huge month, and that made up for having slow months. So you kind of got to know, like, in the back of your mind, there will be those opportunities. Like last week on Friday, I had an opportunity to make 40 grand on Lucid. Did I make 40 grand? No, I sold really early, but those trades, they will happen when you can catch a insane options play. And even if you're on small size, I saw some guy turn a grand into 23 grand. So, just you got to be able to stay the course, because if you blow up your account, you're going to be wishing, man, I wish I followed my rules.
Mo's friend, Mo Mama, one of the traders in the Discord, he bought Lucid calls on Wednesday of last week, and I believe he sold them on Friday Friday in the morning before the rip. And I think he said he left I think it was like 20 or 30 grand on the table. And I don't even know this guy, and I was sick to my stomach for him. I was like, that's got to be the worst thing ever. Like, he was in the trade. Like, it's one thing if
it's like such a random trade to be in.
It's so
I don't know why he was in it.
Apple or
I forget why he said he was in it, but like he was in it. And it's one thing like if you just didn't see it. Like, I didn't see Lucid. Like, people were tagging us in the Discord, and I went and I saw it, and I was like, oh, it's ripping. But like, I wasn't mad that I missed it, because like that's not like something that I do. Like, I'm not trying to catch Lucid ripping. Like, it wasn't really a problem. But to be in the trade and then to like have that happen to you after you sell, like that's got to be that's the worst feeling, man. I felt for that guy. I really did.
It sucks having opportunities like that, but they come up, and that same thing happened to me last week. I was like, okay, Lucid's ripping. It's halted up 3 times. FSR's flat. Let me buy some next week calls. I bought the 7.5 for next week. I'm like, okay, it's not doing anything. I'm just going to sell. And I sold for like even. And they ripped FSR like $1.50. The stock went 25%. The calls went 500%. I had 2 grand in it. I'm like, damn, I could have just made 10 grand if I just like go play golf and go check my phone. But sometimes, like for me, like when you're in too early, sometimes you gotta like let the move develop first and let the news circulate, and then you'll see the reaction. That's what I'm telling myself.
So I wanted to ask you guys how you feel about daily goals, because we were talking about, like you just said, you had a slow January, February last year, and then fast forward and you had like some crazy months, just some crazy trades. I kind of hate the idea of a daily goal a lot. I don't, it doesn't make sense to me in my head. Like, how could you, I get it. Like when I was trading more small caps and everything was just flying around every day, like that kind of made more sense to me. It felt like there was opportunity everywhere, like every day in the market. But now it's like, how could you possibly expect yourself to make this amount every day? Like the market is way slower than it was a couple years ago.
Do you want to go first now, or do you want me to?
Well, you're the guest. I'll let you go first, and then I'll get some input.
Yeah, daily goals. I used to do them all the time, but then I kind of realized, this isn't COVID market 2020, 2021, where you could just buy calls on everything and make money. I mean, that's how I came up. Like when I was in college, like man, I was just buying calls, and it worked every single day for a long time. And that market is definitely not here. I mean, it feels like it for like a week, but. In terms of daily goals, I try to really not do that anymore. It's honestly bigger picture goals, like maybe monthly goals or definitely yearly goals. Because if you hyper focus on these, miniature goals, you're going to be like beating yourself up if you're not hitting them. So I feel like either don't set those daily goals or set like bigger bigger picture goals, like a weekly goal, monthly goal. Or if you're going to do these daily goals, like be realistic with yourself, like realistically in 2021, or, 2022, realistically, if I can make 4 digits a day, I'm super excited with that. I love that. I was doing that, at a decent rate. Now, if I can make $300 a day, I'm pretty happy with that. Or $500 a day. I'm pretty happy with that. So just be realistic with your goals, or it's gonna affect you mentally, I feel like.
If you're gonna have a daily goal, I love what Rocky said. It's got to be really attainable, because what you're doing by setting a daily goal that's like, because I understand the thought process of like making a goal that's like slightly out of reach, so you can like push yourself. But I think when it comes to a daily goal, particularly in trading and in P&L, what you're gonna wind up doing is you feel like you didn't do well if you didn't hit that daily goal. Like let's use Rocky for an example. If his daily goal is 500 and he made 300 that day, he's going to feel like, well, I didn't hit my daily goal. 3:00 rolls around. Oh, well, let me pull up Apple. What are those contracts doing? Let me pull up, XYZ. What are those contracts doing? And like, that's where you fuck yourself right there. So like that alone, I think if you're going to have a daily goal, it's got to be really small. And then just the broader, I guess, framework of having daily goals. Like, I don't know. I think that it can be beneficial in the sense that it shows you what's possible. Because like if your daily goal is really small, like in futures, let's say if your daily goal is 5 points per day, right? So on a micro, so like not a micro, a mini, on a mini, 5 points is what? 5 times 50, 250. Like 250 a day, if you can get 5 points out of the market, like that seems really attainable, right? Like that's not super hard, 5 points. If you can do that every day and then eventually scale up, like I get that thought process, and I get that. That makes sense to me. But where I think you can get hurt is the market doesn't move the same all the time, right? Like the market is really based off of the economic calendar, right? Like there's a direct correlation between how volatile the market is and what news is coming out that week, right? Like we know this. We know that the market trades a little bit funny the day before FOMC, before CPI, right? Like it's not always the same. And then on CPI, you're going to have a much more volatile market than you normally do, right? So I think having that daily goal can get you in trouble in that respect, where you're going to have days that are, relatively boring and sort of small range, and then you're going to have days that are crazy. And I think instead of focusing on the daily goal, focus on the calendar itself and see, okay, well, we have, like this week is a great example. Like look at the range that we've already had this week. Like we've had a decent amount of range and we're only 2 days in. Like, do you think that's an accident, or do you think that's because we have FOMC and Apple and Amazon and Google all reporting this week, and we have jolts tomorrow, and we have NFP on Friday, right? There's going to be more volatility the rest of the week. So like that's kind of how I look at it, where it's you got to look at the calendar and understand that there's going to be certain times where the market is going to move a lot. And so if you're somebody who wants to make those 5 points a day, you might be able to make 25 points on FOMC day because it's going to be so volatile. NFP day because it's going to be so volatile. I'm not saying take a trade before FOMC or before NFP, but at the same time, even the aftermath of those moves is going to be more volatile than like some random Friday, right? Like I think that's kind of how I've started to look at it, where it's like, I'm not going to beat I didn't take a single trade today. Do I care? Like, no, we have FOMC tomorrow. We're going to get 150 points of range. Like, I'll be fine. I'll be perfectly fine. So like, that's kind of how I've started to look at it.
Want to know my daily goal?
What's up?
Let's hear it.
It's to not be a fucking idiot.
That's
the daily goal every day.
That's my goal too.
The daily goal doesn't have to be a P&L number. The daily goal for me is just be disciplined and do what I know I'm supposed to do. That's a good daily goal because I know for a fact I can do that every single day, regardless of what the market is doing. I know that I can do that every day, so that's attainable.
Hondo, even you, right? Like, what would you say your hit rate is on the system? Probably like around 50%, no? But
50%.
Your winners,
if I can hit 50%, I'm making money. I can get away with 45%.
Right. So that should say that you should lose 2 days a week. Theoretically, if you took a trade
Exactly.
every day, you should lose 2 days a week. Like that's what your stats say. Your stats say that there's 2 days out of the week where you should not make money. You might even lose money. Like if you have a daily goal, knowing that, if you still have a daily goal in place, like you're just setting yourself up to be pissed 2 out of the 5 days of the week. Like I don't
It doesn't
get
make
it.
sense. Yeah, it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. I guess that does like differ from trader to trader. Like if you're a scalper, you got to obviously win a little bit more than somebody who's going for bigger moves. But yeah, it's all the same stuff. That's kind of like the first thought I had when why I brought up the question. I'm just like really realizing that sometimes it looks like to other people, like if I tell somebody, if I come on the podcast and I tell somebody, all right, my hit rate this month was 45% and I had a great month, like that's not going to sound sexy. They're going to be like, oh, like 45%, like this guy sucks. Like, no, not really. Like, depending on how you're managing that trade. And then, somebody could tell you they had a 75% hit rate, but their risk management was dog shit and they were red. Like, that's like, just don't worry about what other people are doing. Like, how, oh my God, it's like the whole FinTwit thing. It makes me so upset, man. Like, I get so
I gotta get on
frustrated.
Instagram.
Like, everybody wants to be right, like all the
Yeah.
time.
Oh,
I'm like
oh my
the
gosh, yeah.
best traders are right. Like, first off, the best traders don't even care about being right. Like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, are you making money or are you not making money? It's literally there is no gray area in trading. There's no if, ands, or buts. It's what is your account P&L? Is it going up or is it going down? And that's the only thing that matters. And people get so caught up in all this other horse shit. It's the only thing that matters. Like, are you making money or you're not? If you are, you're doing well. If you're not doing well. That's it.
Too many people are just caught up in, oh, I'm right, or I was first, or it's like, okay, but did you execute, or did you actually like capitalize on that opportunity
Yeah.
you're talking about, or are you just talking about it? And that's where FinTwit's like, oh, I called the top on this. It's like, okay, but did you like do anything about that? That's the thing. So like, just be careful about who you're following, guys. Or you might see us on Instagram or something, but no, I'm just kidding. But
Oh,
Yeah,
you
no,
want to
let's-
switch? Oh well, Finstagram is already a thing, so we can. That's like
oh
fake
yeah,
Instagram. If we all
No,
moved
we'll
over
take it
to
over.
Instagram.
We'll take over Finstagram. That's fine.
FinTwitstagram.
Yeah,
Fin
there you,
talk.
go. There you go.
Let's go Fin Talk. We're gonna take that over.
Oh my God,
yeah.
Fin talk.
Rocky, what are you most excited about going into 2023? So I know I know 2022 was a really good year for you, and you really sort of broke out as a trader and a personality. What are you looking for out of 2023? What are some of your goals that you've got lined up as we head into the new year here?
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of goals just as a person and just with what I'm doing. Obviously, in terms of trading, like if I could do six figures again, I'd be really happy with that. And full disclosure, I mean, I've done that my first 2 full-time years doing this, but it's been in the lower amount, like realistically. Or even if I do half of that, but I'm happy, I'm financially like able to, if I want to travel or something, that'd be cool. In terms of like other things, like I want to definitely get into like another type of business. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that's real estate or venture capital, or I don't even know if I'm even in the position to do those things, but definitely learn about that space more. Because that's the goal one day. I'm 23, but that's why I really wanted to get into trading to begin with. I wanted to accumulate capital at a high rate to eventually do something with that. My dad always told me, and he's been around a lot of great traders that made a lot of money, and they made a lot of money in like 5, 7, 10 years, and they took all that money and they because trading, it can take a lot out of you sometimes, especially when you're putting in all this work and maybe you're not getting the results you want, and that continuously happens. So I'm trying to work on balance in 2023. I would say in 2022 I was really hyper focused on answering every DM, posting 24/7. I was on my phone all the time. Like that just wasn't really healthy. I kind of neglected like going to the gym as much and being healthy and just spending that time a little wiser, I guess. So I'm trying to work on balance in 2023. the money's nice, but that's not my primary objective. Just being happy, healthy, being able to spend time with family and friends, and just be able to live life and do what I love to do every day and be thankful to do it. I would say that's my biggest goal in 2023.
Oh yeah, man.
Love that. Love that. Yeah.
What
I
about
mean,
you? I
look,
want to hear your goals.
yeah, no, for sure. So I echo your sentiments with, sort of like expanding the business, because like you said, like having that one stream of income, like I don't care how sick of a trader you are, like if your only income is coming from trading and you have a red month, like you're gonna feel that. Like stop it. Like
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. So definitely like sort of diversifying out of just having like that one stream of income, just looking at different areas, real estate, definitely also interested there. And then as far as trading goes, I posted this earlier in the year and it seems kind of vague, but for me, I really want to get to the point where my back testing is very like strategic and like automated, because I find that there's so much data that you can learn or that you can use to learn just from yourself, right? Like that's where you're going to learn the most about maybe not necessarily trading, but about who you are as a trader, right? Is from looking at your past losers. How long do you stay in an average loser? When you have a loser, on average, how much do you lose? Is that too much? Like when you have a winner, how long does that winner usually take? When do you get out of your winners on average? How much are you leaving on the table on average? Like stuff like that. I think the more that you can utilize that data, because it's there, right? Like every single day that you're pushing buttons, whether you win or lose, you're going to leave that day with some sort of data point about who you are as a trader. And I think being able to accumulate those and use them to make you a better trader is something that I haven't done nearly as much as I should have in the past. And so that's really my goal, is by not even by the end of this year, but like by the end of the first quarter, to really have like an automated system of looking back at my trades and sort of like internally trying to get better. Because I think there's a bunch of, you could read a billion books, there's a bunch of YouTube videos, like there's a bunch of ways to get better externally, like looking outside and picking other people's brains and talking to better traders and watching videos XYZ. But I think that there's a lot to learn just internally from yourself and what you're doing as a trader. So for me, that's my goal, is to really get that sorted out by like the end of Q1. That's probably my top goal for at least the first quarter of this year. Honda, what about you?
Yeah, I like that. What you just said. Let's definitely work on that together. It's kind of sick. But yeah, for me, my Rocky, you talked about balance. Very, very important. Something that I really started focusing on in the second half of last year. So I'm looking to continue that. I'm running a lot again, which is good, and I'm excited about. I'm starting to feel healthy. Still some injuries popping up here and there, but it's all good. So the balance is important. Trying to be more organized this year. So I've got a daily planner that's really been helping me out. And what I have found that does is, when I'm at the desk and I'm trading, or I'm on Live Voice in the Discord, or I'm spending time on Twitter, I'm really focused. I found that last year I was spending a lot of time just, going in slow motion. Like I was putting in a lot of effort, but I wasn't being as productive as I wanted to. So just being more organized this year is one of the things that I'm really focused on. And my number one goal by far is just going to be discipline. And that's like a forever goal. And that's something you have to work on every single day. It's, I would say I am way more disciplined right now than I was this time last year. And I hope to be able to say the same thing when we do this in 2024. But that to me is, just about doing everything that I need to do. And it kind of ties in with that being organized thing. Like we all know what we want to accomplish and what we want to do on any given day. And if I can write those things down and I can do them, and then I can do that same thing again tomorrow, and I could do that next week, and I just created it, and I just create a habit of doing that. I just feel like I'm gonna start to accomplish a lot of my goals, and that's also gonna help to lead into my trading. And I'm just, trying to be an emotional juggernaut this year. I don't want those blow up days. I was talking about how I feel that's inexcusable, especially at this point in my trading career. Those slip ups where uh, last year, and I put this in like a short video I did, so I guess I might as well share it on the podcast. But in 2 days combined, I lost $12,000. And so when I was reviewing last year, I'm like, I would have had $12,000 more dollars had I remained disciplined and not been an idiot in those, because those are all split second decisions that you make when you enter a trade and you're too heavy, or you just you let something go past your stop. Like, those are decisions that you made in real time. You have to recognize that. You have to own up to that. You have to take responsibility for those actions. So now I'm like, if I can avoid that, and it's not an if, I will avoid that. That's not going to happen anymore. That's going to be major progress for me. So I'm doing an awesome job of it so far this year. Again, I don't feel like I've even been trading that well. I know I can trade way better, but I'm green because my risk management has just been lights out. And that's what I'm most proud of so far. So if I can do that every day, create a habit of that.
Dude, I love that, man. I just love how like disciplined and focused, a lot of you guys are on the King Cap team. And I agree, man. I mean, October 2022, November 2022, I mean, I'll be vulnerable too. I mean, I had some big losses too. I had 2 red months in a row, and at this time I was going through something really tough personally. It was really hard to trade, but I wanted to show up every day because, like, this is my job. Like, I love doing this. At the time, the Discord just started, so like I got to put on. But I just realistically, I wasn't performing to my standard. I was taking big size losses. I think collectively for those 2 months, I lost like 8 to 10 grand. Which in the grand scheme of things, that's not the end of the world. I'm thankful I'm in a position where, like, that's not going to absolutely kill me, but it sucks. Like, nobody wants to lose that much money. But I would say, like, just being able to stay disciplined, that's number one. I mean, discipline is freedom. You can stay disciplined and know when not to trade. That's going to save you a lot of money in the long run. And I see that you're doing that. And that's why I'm going to try and do this year as well. So
I love it, man. Well, Rocky, it was awesome having you back on the podcast, man. Thanks for joining us. Really good conversation.
It was a pleasure, man. I love being on here. Appreciate you guys having me on. Good to see you, boys.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.
All right, man. All right, no, another awesome episode. I'll see you next week for episode 63.
Yep. Thanks again to Rocky, and we'll catch you guys.